Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Beltran, and today's video subject matter is Dear White Nationalists. Let me preface that these are just my observations, and also I do not actually identify as neither an ethno-nationalist, civic nationalist, white nationalist. I am a Christian and I am a patriotic Australian. Okay, so Australia did once govern under the premise of the White Australia policy, which was dismantled by the Whitlam government in 1973. And it was in 2018 when Australia's migration policy completely changed to permit any and every type of person regardless of nationality, ethnicity, culture, religion, language, provided that they met the legal criteria. That is now how we operate. So, with hordes and hordes of turbocharged immigration, it is perfectly understandable why white nationalists view this country as now changed. Because it is. What Australia has done with this multicultural experiment is attempt to amalgamate all these different other ideologies and other cultures and make them one big giant culture for this country. But it doesn't work. The Australian dream has severely changed, and due to this, the native-born Australian will have a much tougher time in life because the immigration continues to grow. And so, there are turbocharged house prices that go up, the infrastructure cannot be supported, and the looking for homes is far more difficult. So, with all of these arguments in favour of the white nationalist, why then am I making this video? Because there are so many reasons that make sense. Our country has changed. Visually it has changed. The people who built the country and settled the land and made our judicial system are no longer the same. Like, we've become inundated with all these other people that weren't there to help us construct the country from the beginning. So what is my gripe with white nationalists? Well, one, you constantly complain that white Australians are no longer the majority or will soon no longer be the majority. Solution: rather than complain and bitch and moan, go out there. Spread the positive message of reproduction. This is actually a biblical message. Genesis chapter 1 verses 27 and 28. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. And God blessed them. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. Have sex with your women. Have more than 3 children if medically possible. White people, in terms of the pie chart, are 11% of the Earth's population. That's not a lot. And with skyrocketing immigration, the number is going to continue to decrease. 2. Stop complaining about the globalist media and their deceptions. Solution: if you cannot beat them, join them. Do a course at university, whether it be journalism, whether it be law, or what have you. Try not to be indoctrinated in leftism along the way, and then infiltrate the system. Use their own methods against them. The more we do this, the more nationalists and civic nationalists and people on the right do this and have a political motivation in mind, which is to better this country and bring it back to Christian or common sense beginnings, the better. Bible verse to match the situation: Isaiah chapter 53 verse 6. All we like sheep have gone astray. We all go astray. Everyone has turned to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. According to website Ipsos.com, a trusted data gathering website, they have found that Aussies have in fact finally become aware that most news media forums are fake news. In Australia, over the past 5 years, trust in newspapers and magazines has had a net decline of 14%. That is, 28% have less trust now versus 14% who trust them more. Trust in TV and radio had a net decline in trust of 13%, while trust in online news websites and platforms had a net decline in trust of 9% globally. Newspapers and magazines suffered the greatest net decline in trust of 16%, alongside TV and radio 16%, followed by online news websites and platforms at 12% versus 5 years ago. Unfortunately, Australians, you're a bit slow on the uptake because according to Ipsos, you still trust traditional media. Trust in traditional media in Australia is much greater than the global average. More than half of Australians, 57%, trust television and radio, with the majority, 46%, saying they have a fair amount of trust, while 11% say they have a great deal of trust in TV and radio. 4 in 10, 38%, don't trust television and radio. For newspapers and magazines, the figures are similar, with just over half, 54%, trusting those mediums. The same number, 46%, have a fair amount of trust, while 8% have a great deal of trust. Again, 4 in 10, 41%, don't trust newspapers and magazines. With word of mouth, we can inform our fellow Australians about just how messed up the global media is. Point number 3, white women, stop complaining that you would be happier without children and a man and a family, because statistically later on you do regret this. Solution: deprogram yourself and see the beauty in organization, in God's design. Titus chapter 2 verses 4 to 5, so that they may encourage the young women to love their husbands, to love their children, to be sensible, pure, workers at home, kind, being subject to their own husbands, so that the word of God will not be dishonored. I know that my adding Bible verses might not prove anything to any of you, but I just want to show that everything that I'm referring to, while it is a right-leaning message, it is also backed up biblically. Now, for the facts. According to the ABS, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, from the year 2000, the level of childless women is 1 in every 4. Recent estimates of childlessness. For women who have not yet reached the end of their childbearing years, current levels of childlessness can be estimated from births registration data. In 1986, about 1 in 5 women were likely to remain childless. In 2000, the level has about 1 in 4 women. Current levels of childlessness vary across the states and territories. Patterns of childlessness derived from first birth fertility rates for 2000 suggest that 33% of women in the Australian Capital Territory and 31% of women in Victoria will remain childless. These comparatively high levels of childlessness are associated with higher average ages of mothers at the birth of their first child, 28.6 years in both the Australian Capital Territory and Victoria, compared with states Queensland 22% and Western Australia 20% had the lowest of childlessness in 2000. Edith Cowan University families researcher Bronwyn Harmon interviewed 330 women who hadn't had children. The majority of the deliberately child-free are pleased they never had kids because of the freedom it gives them. They can do whatever they want. They can come and go as they please. They can please themselves as they want to do, Dr. Harmon said. However, a quarter of child-free women came to regret their decision once they were past childbearing age and began contemplating old age alone. Dr. Harmon said her study was the first to identify this trend. They feel lonely. They've got no one in the world and no one to hand things down to, Dr. Harmon said. They think perhaps this is something they should have considered more carefully and thought about the future. If you decide to follow the feminist mantra that family is not for you, career first, and you put all of these other things first, when you are old, you won't be able to be a grandmother, you won't have anyone to help take care of you, you will die alone. Point 4. Your displaced anger about immigrants entering this country is tiresome. It's time you start blaming your political leaders. Solution: do not blame the Chinese, the Indians, the Iranians for entering this country. The rules are set so they are permitted to enter by meeting the criteria set by the Australian Immigration Office. According to newspaper The Advertiser, Australian politicians prefer party loyalties over public interests. Redirect your rage to the politicians who claim to represent you. South Australia's federal Labor and Liberal politicians have been outed as yes men and yes women who almost exclusively toe the party line, even when South Australian interests are at stake. A new website has recorded every parliamentary vote since 2006 to reveal just how fearful MPs and senators are of upsetting their party elders by crossing the floor. So, we have a lot of cucks, we have a lot of cowards in Parliament. We need to start voting and getting greater people in our parliamentary judicial system so that they can represent our needs. This is why we must vote for non-career politicians. 1 Peter chapter 2 verses 13 to 17, be subject for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether it be the emperor as supreme or to governors as sent by him to punish those who do evil and to praise those who do good. For this is the will of God, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. Live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God. Honor everyone. Love the brotherhood. Fear God. Honor the emperor. 5. You're gonna get angry, but the overt anti-Semitism. Solution. Shut up and accept Christ. I accept that you guys might not be wrong on your conclusions. I am impartial regarding this topic, but the targeted hate towards the Jewish people is uncalled for. Targeted hate on any group of people is uncalled for, but you've got to admit the right does talk a little too much about, the Jews this and the Jews that. So, a lot of you have researched the subject far deeper than I have, and a lot of you always reference, Revelations chapter 2:9 and 3:9. Well, if you want change, pray. Jesus is transformative, and this globalism of which we all believe can be affected through the power of Christ. Remember, you may hate Jewish people for the controlling the media and the banks and etc., but the Bible calls us to love. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So, this is my video, and these are the issues I have with, not all, but many white nationalists. This is what I've observed in this country. If you do not believe you fall under any of these categories, yet you identify as a white nationalist, then this video is not intended for you. If any part of you was triggered, then please take on my summary as a respectful note of what attitudes of certain white nationalists demonstrates to us and what I have observed. But anyway, if you like this video, please click the like button, please subscribe, and please share this video around. Remember, you can also catch me on BitChute, Rational Rise TV, and please be sure to follow me on Telegram.